Hello and welcome to episode number 60 of Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes. And Nathan Oakley is my guest, the recent winner of the very first ever Flatty Across the Pond Award for a person who does a show very similar to this show. Hey, Nathan, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Patricia. How are you doing?
So where are you going to put your Flatty? In your bathroom where most people put their big awards?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it'll be prominently displayed in the spare room for anybody who stays here.
I always wonder when celebrities say that they got a Grammy and they keep it in the guest bathroom, as if they're so beneath it, you know. They've got that in a bulletproof glass case with like spotlight shining on it in the middle of their house.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway. Well, I wanted to talk to you because you interview everybody, or as many people as possible, and so do I. And since we're both kind of doing the same thing, and I've been on your show, I've been wanting to have you on my show for quite the longest time. So much goes on in Flat Earth. And since you and I are in touch with lots of different people, we tend to be touch points, I guess, for all the information, or sometimes flash points for all the information that's going on. What do you think? I want to find out how you got into Flat Earth. I know your first question you ask people is, how did you find out the Earth was flat? But what do you think the hottest story going in Flat Earth is right now?
The hottest story in Flat Earth? That's a really good question. The hottest story? I don't know. People tend to focus on the drama, and they focus on it in a negative way, as if to say we should only ever look at Flat Earth subjects. And I kind of don't agree with that, because the drama, regardless of what it is, if it's somebody trolling or infighting or whatever it may be, people will come for drama because people like drama. And as much as we can sort of turn our nose up and say we shouldn't pay this any attention, maybe not, but other people will. And if they come for the drama and stay for the Flat Earth, then that's kind of good enough for me.
Yeah, I agree with you when it comes to that. There is no way to escape drama because we're human beings, and drama is a part of each and every one of our lives. Just look at things you've got going on in your own personal life. I speak to the viewer when it comes to that. You've got a drama with a neighbor. You've got a drama with your child's teacher. You've got a drama with your spouse or your significant other. Even drama. I mean, I've got my cats here right now. They're creating some drama over here on the side. I'm hoping they don't knock anything over. There's always something going on. And if somebody is intrigued by a little story that they've heard, something scandalous or something weird, and they go look at Flat Earth for that, hey, you never know, they might stay and find some validity in the whole idea. So what about you? I'm going to pretend I'm you. So how did you find out the Earth was flat? That wasn't very good. Not a very good Nathan impersonation, but how did you figure it out?
I'd hate to lie and say it was something other than pretty much what everyone else says, but it was a Math Powerland video, and I can't even remember which one it was, because you probably know from watching Math Powerland's video, he speaks in double Dutch. He doesn't necessarily focus on Flat Earth as the overall subject matter for each video, but when he said those two words, it was unreal. The feeling, the sort of immediate realization of what that meant was enough to get me to literally jump out of my seat, pretty much where I am now, run into the bedroom, wake up my wife, shake her, and say, the Earth is flat. And I can remember sort of looking out the window and saying, it's flat, and her shaking her head and going, oh, whatever, leave me alone. But yeah, it was a Math Powerland video.
Oh, interesting. Okay. I've said before, for me, it was a Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues. And then, of course, I found Math Powerland, and then everybody else. And, it's kind of a blur as to what happened. But the same thing, wanting to just shake someone and say, the Earth is flat. And that was quite what my life was about for quite some time. Even if I didn't really go ahead and do that too much, I did tell a few people with not very many good reactions. But you do feel that need to express it. And I guess that's why I do what I do. Is it what made you start doing a YouTube channel? I know you already had a YouTube channel more about electronics, and I want to talk to you about that. But is it what made you start doing Flat Earth YouTube, that you had to just get it off your chest?
A bit of wanting to get it off my chest. You put it well when you said you've got a bit of information that feels like a golden special egg, and you kind of want to carry it around and offer it to people. But like you say, when you do offer it to people, you just get ridiculed. So it was a means of being able to express that elation, that exciting feeling with other people. And I was making YouTube videos before, as you said, and it was just easy to click record, press upload, and there it goes. The reason I started doing Flat Earth UK was to have conversations like this. So I dropped Matt Powerland an email, and unbelievably, he almost instantaneously got back to me with answers. I was quite taken aback by how nice people in the Flat Earth community are. You same with yourself, I got an instant response from you, and that's so nice. You don't expect it, because YouTube is full of people, real people, and they're more than willing to respond to you. It's not like when you're dealing with a celebrity and they might get 1 million fan mails, although I'm sure you probably get dozens and dozens of letters from approving fans. But yeah, I wanted to actually communicate with people like Matt Powerland, and a Skype call to someone like Matt Powerland, to ask for that. You probably get it in your YouTube messages, people saying they want to do a hangout, and you kind of want to say, yeah, brilliant. But if you don't know who they are, you kind of, you're not going to have a great conversation with them live on air. And if you're anything like me, you're probably quite busy most of the time, and therefore you just may not have time to have a Skype conversation. So I thought Matt Powerland would undoubtedly be the same. He just wouldn't have time to dedicate an hour or two to sitting on the phone with me. So to actually get him to do that, it was weird that I could convince him to do it as a live broadcast. that made no sense, but that's how it came about. People seem to be more willing to dedicate their time to doing it live than to doing it with you one-to-one. So yeah, that's how it came about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. When I first started, I was doing shows with Stars Are Souls. We started doing hangouts, I guess, something just like this together. Then I branched out, and then I interviewed Mark Sargent. I had reached out to Eric Dubé, and that didn't work out so well. And was trying to get, the heavy hitters, Matt Powerland, and we hadn't really connected on that level yet. But of course, Mark Sargent was willing to. And then he asked me to be on his show, Strange World. And during his Strange World show, because he'd watched a few of my interviews, he made some kind of a prophetic statement. And he said, eventually you're going to be able to interview whoever you want in Flat Earth. And a lot of people were taken aback by that. Like, well, who does she think she is? Or who does he think she is, that she'll be able to interview anybody in Flat Earth? Well, just like you, all you do is you message somebody, and 99% of the people are nice enough to say, yes, sure, because they have their platform of their YouTube channel in which they're doing their experiments or talking about the revelation of Flat Earth and how it's affected them, doing their interviews or whatever it is that they do on their channel. But a lot of people appreciate a secondary platform like you and I provide to be available as a person and to talk about where they're coming from. And it's easy. Yeah, you can interview whoever you want, because none of us are celebrities. We don't have bodyguards. We don't have any hoops that people need to jump through before they get to us. I mean, we answer our own emails for the most part. It's hard to answer all of them, of course. And we're just regular people. So it's really refreshing, the whole Flat Earth thing. There are people that have become well known within the Flat Earth world, but nobody's a celebrity. When you think about how small Flat Earth is, although it's growing, if you ask the big wider world who Nathan Oakley is, or myself, or Matt Powerland even, or any of the big people will just scratch their head and say, I have absolutely no idea who you're talking about. By the way, have you watched the latest Keeping Up with the Kardashians? Because those are the people that are the well-known ones in our society, unfortunately, anyway. So the biggest scandals in Flat Earth do draw a lot of attention, but in some way, those big things that happen when there's a new hater video out on somebody and everybody gets involved in making comments, or when something really dramatic happens, like somebody drops off the face of the Flat Earth map and leaves a bunch of burning buildings in their wake, as has happened recently. Those are the things that get all the attention. But we tend to miss out on some of the smaller things, the brand new channels that crop up with really great people, because everybody's attention is focusing on, the burning wreckage by the side of the road. So what do you do to try to keep up with the latest in Flat Earth, the newest stuff?
Oh, well, it's generally YouTube suggestions. I've got to be honest, I don't have enough time to do what you do and search Flat Earth every single day to see the new videos that come up. So in that respect, I'm probably not exactly Mr. Flat Earth Current Affairs, but you know, I'll try and keep on top of at least all the people I've subscribed to see what they're doing. And some of them, like John Le Bon, will actually mirror other people's work that they pick out and like. I know in the past I've sort of put out almost adverts for other YouTube channels that I have stumbled across, and it is just kind of like that. I kind of stumble across flat Earth channels when I'm searching for something specific. So if I've got I don't know, a piece of flat Earth information that I'm looking for, I'll do a search for it and often come across a random YouTuber that gives an explanation for it.
Do you have favorites, people that you really follow their work, subscribe to whenever there's a new video by them, your eyes light up kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Tiger Dan, as much as people might hate me saying it, but I would love to have Tiger Dan on my show.
You and I would have to fight over that. I would love to have Tiger Dan on again as well. I am not a hater of Tiger Dan. When he first started going down the path, oh wait, hold on, one of my cats is trying to destroy something. Hold on, this is weird. Sorry. Hold on.
Mischievous cats, I love it.
This is Flynn.
Ah.
But I have a clock over here to my left on the wall, and he likes to jump up on this old-fashioned record stand and stand on his hind legs and then pull the hands of the clock, changing the time, which is not good, plus breaks the clock. So I don't know what he's trying to do. He's trying to make time stop or something. All right, Tiger Dan, when he first came out and he was struggling with the maps, I posted on that particular video for people to just let him be, let him have space. I don't know what I said exactly, but that was what I meant by it. To just let him figure it out. Quit, yelling at him. And then, of course, things took a different turn, and then he said a few things that weren't the best way, I don't think, to put his viewpoints across. And things went to where they are today. But I do still see him around. I see him making comments on videos occasionally. You've probably come across that as well, right?
Yeah, sure. I've seen him make a few comments here and there.
Some have said that might not even be him, but I have no reason to believe it's not him. What do you think?
I think it is. I mean, I generally check. I'll actually click on the icon and see if it is him. Just to make doubly certain that it is commenting. It's one of those. People will knock him, but to my knowledge, having watched his videos a couple of times, the most recent one, he hasn't actually said the Earth is a globe. Those words have not crossed his lips as yet. Now, maybe someone will correct me in the chat feed, but to my knowledge, he hasn't said that yet.
I don't think he has either. I am still wondering if he's going to come out with more videos, as he said he was, or he's just decided to drop the whole thing. Do you think he will come back with something?
Oh, definitely. I don't think he's going to just drop off the face of the planet. I think, for a start, his Bible proofs will take a long time if he's going to try and dissect those up. And I don't know, it's a lot of work in itself. And some of the people in the comments said, how could he possibly know it would be 10 videos? And you think, well, of course it'd be easy to figure it out. You could scribble down 10 topics on a piece of paper in about 5 seconds. It wouldn't take any time at all to come up with those 10 different videos, mark them down and then work your way through them. And the first 5 might have been dead easy, and then he's got to number 6 and it's just a lot more difficult. There's no schedule. He's not got a manager breathing down his neck to get these videos out. It doesn't matter if it takes him 6 months. I'm sure he'll do a really good job. The thing that bugged me more than anything was that his attitude did not change. Nothing about how he approached what he was doing changed. When he was doing it with, who's the religious guy he set his teeth into?
Rob Skiba.
No. Long before that.
Long before that. Ken Hovind?
Kent Hovind. When he was really setting into him, the way he did it was no different to how he started setting into flat Earth when he sort of turned on his own beliefs, if you like. It was exactly the same, but everyone praised him when he did it to Kent and sort of mocked him when he did it to flat Earth. And you think, well, that approach is the same. It doesn't mean he suddenly has to be labelled as a Freemason, which a lot of people did. And you think, well, he's not doing anything different. I don't get it.
He also had recently, right before the map thing, had a couple of negative videos against Eric Dubé as well. So, some were saying, oh, well, he's a, Bible believing Christian and this isn't a Christian attitude. He just has his own attitude. So whether or not he conducted himself in the way I would have conducted myself, that's a different story. Would I have said the things that he said in the way he said them? No, I wouldn't. But then I'm not him, and I can't fault him for either A, having problems with flat Earth, or B, expressing himself the way he did. I wish he didn't say the things that he said, the negative ways in which he attacked Jaron and others. But his belief system, and it changed based on information that he has. I would like him to share that information with all of us. That's the part that I think is lacking thus far. There are very few people who have said he's brought up some very valid points, anti-flat Earth points. Do you believe any of his points were valid?
Not really. The railway one, as soon as he put it out, my heart kind of sank, and you think,
me too.
Ah, dear, why have you picked that one? Because everyone's going to start pointing fingers at you for it. So
I don't remember anybody saying railways were proof of a flat Earth.
No, I mean, Eric Dubé has actually, and to a certain degree, so have I, on the channel advert for Nathan Oakley 1980, but based on the way the plane survey works, not based on the rails, which is kind of what he did.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You think, why have you phrased it like that? You could have been a lot more clever. But he has, and maybe he's just putting his thoughts down on paper as he comes across them. I don't know. It's just speculation. I just enjoyed watching his videos, and I'm really excited for the next one.
And I liked him as a person, and I have not changed that. And there was a time when people were saying, and I was included in the sort of speculation as, is he possessed? Has he been compromised? All these varying things that people were saying. And, I was not saying any of these things are true, but saying, well, maybe this is true. Maybe that is true. Possible. What do I know? But I'm looking at it now with the distance that time provides, and I just think he went a different route. I don't know why. We'll never know why. We will only be able to take what he says as the reason why. And that's just like all of us. You can only take us at face value. So he probably is just taking some time, getting some breathing space between himself and the whole incident, the drama that went on.
Yeah, that could be it. He could just be working really hard. But we don't understand the psychology of this because it's all so new. If you ignore people like Jeff Stewart and Matt Powerland, who've been in the flat Earth arena for a number of years, for the majority of us, like you and I, it's a fairly recent experience. So it's hard to know what the psychology of what is to come for people who come to flat Earth. So Learn of the Jesuit Order and Tiger Dan have both done similar things. And you think, well, could it be that flat Earth in and of itself is such a massive culture shock? It's such a swing in the way of thinking that you could swing back. We just don't know if that could happen to any of us. You just don't know because of the severity of what you're actually taking on board. For some, they've got to do massive amounts of research into something that they haven't necessarily paid a great deal of attention to. So the globe, I know that people will start to quote nonsense at you or misunderstandings about how the globe works when they're arguing against flat Earth. So suddenly a lot of flat earthers will have to learn a huge amount about the heliocentric model as opposed to the flat Earth model. So you're suddenly having to take on board the fact that the place you live isn't where you thought it was, and you've got people ridiculing you for that. And in order to win any debates, you've got to understand how the globe model works in great detail. It's hugely overwhelming. So I can kind of understand that there's going to be a certain percentage of people that it's just going to send them nuts.
Learned of the Jesuit order more recently. Never claimed to be a flat earther, but he had the largest collection, as far as I know, of debunking of the International Space Station videos, and they're all gone now. Last I checked, there was only one video left, which was a JFK video. Maybe that's even gone at this point. And he said that he was wrong about all of the information that he had presented, and that NASA is doing real science. The ISS really is up there, and satellites are there as well. But he didn't provide any proofs of any of that, which I would have loved to have seen that. I am not a person who is going to stand by this whole flat earth thing if something were presented to me to prove otherwise. Just like I wasn't a person who's going to stand by that globe no matter what if new information is presented to me. And it was, and that's why I'm a flat earther now. That doesn't mean that I'm going to just go any way the wind blows. It would have to be hard and fast information. And if I ever found any information that led me to believe that we live on a globe, I would not put up a video saying, I was wrong, I'm taking down everything and disappearing. I would probably talk to close friends of mine first, then put out a video, just talking just like this, sharing like, look, what do you think about this? And then they would say, well, here's an explanation. Just work it out one way or the other. What about you? Do you ever feel that someday you're going to wake up and think, wait a minute, some of this information that I've taken on board could be incorrect. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, definitely not. The way I came to flat earth, again, because of the overwhelming nature of it, was to put my first videos out in a kind of soft way and phrase things as questions. So if the reverse was to happen now and there was you and I both know that we do not sit waiting for the next NASA video to come out thinking it's going to have some fantastic proof of the globe, because once you've had that flash of realization, you've seen in your mind's eye every nonsense NASA video you've ever watched throughout your entire lifetime. So from that point on, what was the most recent, the gravity waves thing? When I heard that, I didn't think for a second, let's tune in. Oh no, there's going to be some amazing proof that's going to convince me we're on a globe suddenly. Right. No way. You just immediately, before you've even switched it on, think, where's the nonsense going to begin and where will the nonsense end?
And it's not because I'm not open to anything. It's just that you can sense it. Yeah.
So yeah, there's I don't think I'd do it if there was something that was like that. So if the gravity wave thing was super convincing, or something came from CERN that was super convincing, I'd probably take the same approach, which is I'd put it out there with a question mark at the end of it and hope that the information would come to me, like a lazy guy that I am, rather than doing massive amounts of research. Sort of make it as a statement, but with a question mark, and then hope that someone comes along and says, no, you're completely incorrect about this. But I did love that with the whole gravity waves thing. I don't know if you caught the Globebusters episode where they went through it. But just immediately people pounce on it and rip it to shreds within seconds. It was the same when they had the epic footage with all the lights on it. Within minutes, you've got Insanity is Sanity just tearing it to pieces and pointing out how rubbish the lightning is on a time lapse. And it's great. I can't envisage anything coming along that's suddenly gonna fantastic proof of the globe. I just can't see it happening.
Sometimes I back my mind up to the part where I was very convinced we live on a flat earth. This is long before I ever started doing videos. I found out in March, and I didn't start doing videos until the end of August. So there was a period of time where I went through lots of research, looking at videos and thinking, and then finally decided I had to do videos just because I needed to talk about it. I backed myself up to the little parts I had problems with, which was at first I thought satellites, how could satellites not be real? I couldn't get my mind around that, and then I figured out what was happening. Then I thought about the International Space Station, and I thought, how are they faking the floating thing? And people would say, oh, the vomit comet. And then other people would say, well, it can only sustain that feeling of weightlessness or the vision of weightlessness for X period of time. And they have much longer cuts. And then it's people saying, oh, it's wires. They're being held up by wires on green screen. But then sometimes you wouldn't see wires. It would just look really convincing, although the hair and other things looked fake too. I think to myself, maybe they've got something. That doesn't mean they're up there flying in the air, but they've got something, some underground base where they can actually do anti-gravity. They can make it appear that way. But then when I look at the people, the smaller level astronauts, they just look so genuine. They look like that I'm looking at you. They look like a regular person believing in what they're doing. Or when you even see that Tim Peake, he doesn't look like a crafty, maniacal, evil liar. He just looks like a guy. Are they that great of the actors, or?
That gets me every time. The fact that they're so sincere, they don't look like they're lying. That I struggle with more than the green screen and the, you know, the trapeze wires that they wear and the harnesses. I mean, that I can easily write that off, because if they were floating around in zero G, just to show off, they'd have one guy upside down and one guy right way up and one guy, you know, they'd all be in all different positions, but they always seem to be lined up with each other. They're all pointing in the same direction. But if nowhere's up and nowhere's down, just to show off, you'd think they'd have them all over the place in every single shot. But it's only when you can hear the engine noise and, you know, massive amounts of outdoor noise when they do those long not cutaway shots, those long continuous shots. And Jeff Stewart did a great video where he pulled it to pieces and said, well, there's no airlocks between any of these sections. There's there's lots of these sections, and you've only got to have one micrometeorite hit one section and they're all dead instantly.
Well, before that video that you're speaking of, long before that, Mark Sargent had the valve expert on, the person responsible for manufacturing those valves, on his Strange World show. And that guy came on and talked about that exact same thing. And that was months ago, showing that it's impossible. The ISS is literally impossible. Of course, yes, many other people have come out to do similar videos after that. But hearing from that expert was really great. It made me really understand what was going on. But yeah, when I look in the faces of those astronauts, that's the part that reminds me of how I felt as I was just becoming a flat earther. Just thinking, how could this be true? How could people literally lie to your face like that? Yes, we're used to presidents lying to our face and that sort of thing. But these astronauts just, they don't have that level like a president or a politician we expect to be lied to by them. These just seem like your neighbor almost. And it's shocking that they can just lie like that. And I don't think they're being paid billions of dollars either. I don't think that they get incredible salaries. What is the benefit to them to lie like this? Or once they reach that level, they have no choice?
Well, it could be that they're not lying at all. I mean, there's a couple of different scenarios. One is they know exactly what's going on and they're just acting, and it's just a bit of duper's delight. They know exactly how they're fooling us and why they're fooling us. That's one option. The other option, which is a Tiger Dan option, is that they are, in their minds, believing that what is happening is real. So they do their underwater tests and so on and so forth for the outside footage that they present to us. This isn't kind of working in my own mind even while I'm saying it, but there's
they would have to know they're in water.
Yeah, exactly. For the outside shots, that logic would work. But I was going to say
the part right there where it falls apart to me is when they're putting on the scuba tank or whatever air, thing that they've got to wear. They've got to know, wait a minute, this isn't real.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember? You may have not seen it, but on I think it was Channel 5 here in the UK, we had something called Space Cadets, and it was and they convinced the gullible people, and they screened them in the same way as Darren Brown will screen people when he's trying to do magic on them. So he'll pick people that have certain attributes to their personalities, basically gullibility, and they will use those subjects to manipulate them into physically doing something just by subliminally planting messages and things like that. And Space Cadets kind of worked on similar principles. People that would be accepting of that fakery and wouldn't question it were the people that ended up being the Space Cadets. So what I was going to say with the astronauts, there might be a similar thing going on. They pick the more gullible type of personality so that they can stick them in, I don't know, some Hollywood studio that looks real to them. But like you say, as soon as it comes to the spacewalks, and you can't unjustify the fact that there's bubbles in them and you occasionally see someone in a scuba tank. It's just nonsense. There's no way of I can't talk my way around that part of the nonsense on the ISS, because it is complete farce with the bubbles coming out their helmets, and all the things that Mark Sargent and the Globebusters teams would list, and the lack of a 360-degree turn, all of those sorts of things.
Sometimes I think they're going to, since they seem to realize the small, tiny flat Earth world and our little problems with what they're doing, they seem to answer all of our little problems by changing things. Sometimes I think they're going to find a way to do that 360 view. Of course, they could plan it out and fake it somehow to prove
they
it to us.
They did it on the Globebusters on one of the shows about a week following. So Bob had said, we never get a 360, we never get a 360. And obviously they're constantly monitoring the ISS live feed. And they're watching it, and the following week they did what seemed like a 360-degree turn of the camera, but the globe, the CGI of the globe sort of went out on one side and was turning in one direction, then it came in the other at a bizarre angle. It was just a complete mess, and to me it seemed like they were trying, or at least attempting, to address some of the issues on Globebusters. And you can see it week in, week out. There will be subtle differences and improvements to what they do. And the previous week, they've literally talked about that exact anomaly happening on the feed. So yeah, I've said it to them before. I genuinely think that they are watching them. And when I said that to Jaron, he said, I don't think so. I think they've got so big for their boots. But if you've got that kind of budget, what's the harm in getting direct criticism? It's like the most constructive feedback they could ever get.
Jaron's biggest fan, NASA.
Yeah, watched by 20 screens with all these individuals listening to every word on headphones.
You could picture them in that sort of thing. Yeah, I would imagine they would assign a couple of people to monitor that.
I would have thought so.
To see what's going on.
Obviously, I have no clue, but
right, we're just theorizing at this point. Interesting. Well, I enjoy watching all of these shows, but then sometimes afterwards I'm thinking about how I'm trying to put myself back in the position I was before I found out about flat Earth. Now, before that, I never really watched space stuff. Did you ever?
Definitely. I was a massive fan of NASA.
You were?
Yeah.
So I'm sure in passing I saw these things. I was alive for the whole Apollo missions, and I saw them. And even as a child, when the rocket shooting up would cut away to a drawing, I said, that's a drawing. I knew it was a drawing, but it was explained to me that they don't have cameras in space, so that they have to have a drawing. And my mind just accepted that, and I went on with life. Only at much later age did I figure out that Apollo missions were fake. And now I look at them and I'm pretty ashamed I even believed it all, but that's the way we all are. But you were a real fan of NASA.
Yeah.
How were you able to change the way that you look at things? Because at one point it all looked legit to you.
I think it helped. I didn't have to do huge amounts of research into how the heliocentric model worked, because I had a really good understanding, or not really good understanding, a good understanding of how things worked. And that's got better since finding out the Earth is flat for the reasons I gave earlier. So it didn't take me more than a second to have all of those images flash through my mind. And the Science at NASA channel on YouTube, I would always watch their videos. And you get to the end, and you just described it really well. You know that they're presenting you with a cartoon, but they're always quite cleverly phrased and quite cleverly cut together so that some people would actually accept what they're seeing as real, as opposed to seeing it and going, well, like you say, obviously they can't have a camera in space. They can't film themselves filming on Mars. That's impossible. So you know that it's an animation, but some people don't. Some people see that and think it's real. But you've got that knowledge in the back of your mind. And I was always disappointed. The end of each video, you kind of felt a bit empty with what they'd shown you. And finding out why I had that empty feeling was those flashes of images when Matt Powerland said flat Earth, when he put those two words together. So I didn't have to go back and suddenly start reviewing that footage, except for the moon landing stuff, which I wasn't alive when it happened. I'd seen it flashed up on mainstream TV whenever they use that footage. But one of the commenters on a video I made summed it up really nicely, which is in the 70s and late 60s, when that was presented to people, it flashed by so quickly on a 17-inch screen or whatever the technology of the day was, and you didn't have enough time to assess it and rip it to pieces. Now I've got an 8-foot screen, and you can pause YouTube and go back frame by frame and look at it in really great detail. And being able to do that gives you the ability to just rip it to pieces and see how appalling it looks. Red Dwarf, a show I really love, has better models than NASA had in the 60s and 70s. They're nowhere near as good, and therefore they don't look as realistic. It has dated really, really badly.
It is funny the way some of the moon stuff looks, the way they're moving their upper body as opposed to their lower body. Things I never even thought of when I watched these things. But, you know, they say now they're going to mothball the ISS and they're going to build a base on the moon. So how do you think they're going to pull that off? I mean, I know they're not going to really build a base on the moon, but how are they going to lie and scheme and come up with something? What are your theories as to what NASA's got in store for us? What stories do they have ready for us?
I think whatever they want to conjure is really easy, and they're always about a step and a half behind visually what you see in Hollywood. Well, you've only got to watch Gravity. They can create anything. They can create anything they like. Same with The Martian. Who's going to question that if we see virtually the same thing in a couple of years' time? Anybody who's just accepting of the current globe programming is going to see that and go, yep, we're on Mars, and then go about their business without giving it a second thought. The danger is that there's tens of thousands of people now that will look at it in a very different light. Maybe it'll just get delayed. Maybe it'll just be like the trial by fire thing. It'll just get dragged out and then eventually cancelled for one reason or another, and they'll just be in a perpetual cancelling and arranging of things, and they never actually come to fruition. But
what they want is
right now.
Yeah, what they want is all of us to die. They want us to die with the information that we have, and they'll just keep pushing back all of their plans and things, and then people will die and forget, you know, where the promises. I mean, how many times have they found water on Mars? I think it's several different times that they've announced
at least 3.
And we always forget, and then it's a new discovery. I mean, what do they know we have a short attention span, and they play on it.
But we should be jumping around saying, let's go back to the moon, let's go back to the moon, let's have it. And we haven't been until Flat Earth comes along, and then Flat Earth comes along, and time to build a base on the moon.
Which is what you would consider they would have done initially.
Yeah, we should have had a base on the moon in the 80s. By now, we should have cities on the moon. If it was a rock, it's not. It's just a light in the sky. You know, I look at the moon, and if anybody ever says, well, no, obviously that's terra firma, you only have to look at it when it's a 50% moon, and during the day, what should be rock that's not lit, you can see the blue sky through it, and then when it gets to nighttime, you can see the black sky through it. It's
amazing.
Transparent.
It's amazing. That is one of the best. It's not a proof of flat Earth, but it's one of those ways that you can make a little crack in somebody's thought process and get them to look into flat Earth. These little things, just like the moonlight is colder test. It's the same kind of thing. Doesn't prove flat Earth, but proves something's wrong with the way the world is being presented to us. So, the blue sky through the moon. I mean, that one, you can go see that almost any time. Just go look outside and you can see it. And I sit there and look at it.
That's another thing about the reality of it. You can't have some magical proof of the globe purely because it's not reality. It's not where we live, and you've been observing where you live forever. So once you have the information, you've got two choices. You can either fight against it because of the education system and the way we're programmed to fight against it, or you can accept the evidence of your own eyes and realize that it's flat.
Indeed, and that's what us flat earthers are doing. We're accepting the evidence of our own eyes for perhaps the very first time in our life. And it's challenging for sure, because you're one person and you're against really almost an army of people who are naysayers. But then within the flat earth community, there are armies that get formed, people against other people that are all flat earthers, which doesn't really make any sense to me, but it seems to be happening. And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. Do you think this will ever go away? This infighting, these different armies massing to attack other individuals in flat Earth?
No, I think it'll always be like that. People are people, and there's going to be personality clashes, but they're always just that, personality clashes. There's never a flat Earth issue between these people. I think when the Morgul and Math Powerland had their falling out, the subject matter wasn't flat Earth. The only time it even came close to it being like that was when Math said, well, you're the other infinite plane guy. And that was about as close as it got to fighting about flat Earth. So it's always just a personality clash as opposed to any real arguments over models. I can't see someone like the Morgul fighting with someone like Mark Sargent because they disagree with over the dome. I just don't ever see it happening. But will they fall out because they don't like each other personally? Absolutely. People fall out every day. The fact that we have a great nugget of golden information with flat Earth won't change how people react to each other. There's always going to be a bit of fighting, unfortunately.
What about you? Do you have people who really dislike you?
People who dislike me, probably thousands.
Okay, let's talk about that. Why would someone dislike you? What would be the reason? What have they given you as a reason?
Probably because I can be a bit of a dick, and people don't like that. So,
you know, I saw you make a comment somewhere about that on a video, and I don't even remember what video. And I wrote, "I've never seen you be like that, Nathan. I don't know what you're talking about." And a bunch of other people chimed in, and somebody even private messaged me links to things that you said. And the things you said didn't really shock me at all. I guess it just seemed like you were just being honest.
I don't know. You're never going to please 100% of the people 100% of the time. And obviously, I don't want to annoy people in what I say, but I try and kind of be honest with myself. I'm acutely aware that what I put on any comments is public and that people will get to read it. And like most people, I could be quite stroppy and miserable sometimes, and I'm just no different to anybody else. And it's nice in the community that we're in that people can understand that we're just normal human beings. Sometimes we'll have an off day. We're not all smiles and joy 100% of the time. And that I was thinking about this before we came on, actually. There's always going to be a handful of society that watch a soap opera and actually think the people on the soap opera are real people as opposed to just actors. Now, take that one step, or remove yourself one step from that, and you have what we're doing. So I try and keep my persona as close as possible to how I am in real life, but it's not. This isn't real life. We're doing an interview, so it's live, but it's not real. You're not sat in front of me. That chemistry isn't there, and you can't recreate it through the lens of a camera. You can try to, and you can give your best impression to people, but it's never going to be the same as actually sitting in a room with someone or spending a day with them and seeing their irritating habits. And I quite like the comments. You know, it's a night. I'm a bit of an insomniac, so I'll often spend a huge amount of time replying to people's comments, and I love it. Nobody ever annoys me. That's the thing. Some of my endeavors recently have been done not on behalf of other people, but because I see other people getting hurt or annoyed or upset with other YouTubers' actions. And being very thick-skinned, I kind of don't care of attacks that will come my way as a result. Nothing anybody's done on YouTube or probably could do to me is ever going to make me upset. I don't know. I've endured enough through life for things like that to just not bother me in the slightest. So I'm in a kind of happy position where I can attack other people, you know, attack the monsters that are out there, and think, I don't care if you want to attack me back, bring it on. I don't care. It's never gonna upset me.
I noticed a couple of times in comments, just reading random comments, that you've come to my rescue before. Not a comment section I was involved in, but just reading, I'd see you there saying something positive about me or explaining something that somebody had wrong. And you've gone to bat for me on Hangouts, I've heard, pertaining, I don't know, I just thought it was pretty brilliant that you have no fear. There are a lot of people who will read about or watch on a video somebody being unfairly dealt with, but they don't want to risk their own. They don't want to risk themselves by putting their neck on the line, by speaking up or stepping out, because when you do, I mean, you will be attacked as well. But you just don't care. You go ahead and say what you want, and I like that about you. I really do. You have really no fear.
Fearless, though. I mean, there is definitely fear there, but it's knowing what to be scared of. And little boys on YouTube. Oh, Sasha, Orphan Red did a superb video recently. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, of course I did.
Maybe a week or 10 days ago. And she basically addressed the horrible, nasty, trolly comments that she gets in her videos. And I had goosebumps throughout the whole video.
So did I.
She approached it. What she basically did was just read out the comments. She didn't necessarily give any or a massive amount of preamble to the comments. She just read them, but she did it with what's the word? She didn't blush.
Right,
she did
exactly.
Very matter of fact. And to hear somebody who comes across obviously quite sweet and happy saying, it's sort of 4 p.m. there, so I probably won't say any of the actual swear words, but to use the F word and the C word and talk about her breasts, but do it in a way that's so mature, directly to camera, and using the people who've been nasty to her, using their names. I was just jumping up and down and clapping and thinking, oh, brilliant, that's genius. You know, she's a clever girl. I like that.
Yeah, people were saying it was something like she was reading mean tweets, and it took the power of those things away to hear her read them. They don't really have any power when we all have received similar comments, not exactly like that, but geared toward us specifically. Anybody who makes videos gets these sorts of things. But the way she did it, it just pretty much neutered the people who wrote those comments and cast them in a very stark light, and made you say to yourself, these people aren't even human beings. They're not treating others with even the smallest amount of respect. And it's pretty shocking when these are your fellow human beings, especially when some of those comments actually are coming from flat earthers.
That's what shocked me. There were some names that I heard that you go, wow, did you really say that? As you said earlier, I mean, I will make some horrible comments, or maybe they're not horrible.
I don't see your comments as horrible.
I'd give people a hard time if I disagree.
And funny and a little bit dark, but you're defending somebody or showing a point about something. You're not just randomly walking around slamming people.
No, but I mean, people like, I'll give a specific example of somebody who I really love, which is Jesse Spots. And Jesse Spots does something that I couldn't, because it would drive me mad. But he manages to look at topics in detail, and I will get to a certain stage with a topic and go, I don't believe this, and then kind of put it to one side and leave it. And Jesse will look into those subjects, and he's just presenting information. But if it's something that I'm passionate about, I'll give him a really hard time. Now, I love the guy, but somebody might read that and think, God, you really dislike Jesse Spots, and nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, thinking about it, I think I gave Orphan Red a hard time recently as well in one of the comments about the Mandela effect. Now, it's about the subject matter, or I'm, criticizing a point as opposed to the person. And again, some people don't get that. They will assume that I'm, suddenly fallen out with, I don't know, whoever, Tiger Dan. If I'm criticizing somebody, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily against that person. I'm sure you've had at least a few times where you fundamentally disagree with what somebody says.
Yes, there are many topics that I'm unsure about. I'm unsure about the Mandela effect, although I've seen aspects of it and can't explain them in my own life, which makes me think there could be something to that. But would I sign my life, away and say, this is indeed a true thing. No, I'm not there with that yet. Same thing with cloning. Possible? Sure. Look at all the other crazy stuff that's happened. But is it something that I would 100% back and say, indeed, this is a fact? No, I don't have all the information and don't know however we would ever get all that information. So I see what you're saying. If you critique a person's belief in those things or other things, that doesn't mean you dislike the person or everything else they speak of. It's just that one specific thing that you happen to have a problem with at that time. And that's fair enough, as long as it's written in that way. It's fine.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of the comments section. It's nice that we can have a debate. We can discuss these things. And on the whole, you're going to get the comments that say your mom's a blah, 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 and the ridiculous comments. But on the whole, most people who are in this community will have a very mature debate in the comments about a given subject. The thing that kind of, I still can't wrap my head around this, and John LeBon and other people are looking at this very subject, which is the comments that you get from the same people that are the same comments in every single video you produce, and they're asking the same anti-flat earth questions with such vigor that you kind of think, why are you dedicating so much of your time to coming up with point after point after point to try and prove the globe to me and anybody who reads these comments? And I find myself chewing up so much time because I don't want to leave a thread that's left empty with somebody putting it across a point. The boat does go over the curve. If you don't address that, somebody might come to those comments, read it, and think, oh, well, nobody's actually addressed this point. It must be true. So that kind of gets a bit frustrating.
I get those, you know, the boat and the curve, the pole star, the Santiago Chile flight question, just randomly peppered on all of my videos. And I did a video promo, minute something promotion for the, at the time, upcoming Flatty Award. So this was a promotion for an upcoming show. And somebody put that comment there. And I'm like, why are you putting this comment on all of my videos, including a promo for an event? If you really have a question about this, there are many resources where you can find an answer. Coming to a video promo to get an answer to a very important question wouldn't be my first choice. If I had a question about, I don't know, how to make a margarita, I wouldn't just go through a toll booth on a highway and just like give the guy my dollar and ask him how to make a margarita. I'd go get a book on margaritas or look it up online. So I don't know why these people are posting the way they do. It's just a way, probably, for them to feel good that they're making a difference, that they're hammering those darn nasty flat earthers where it hurts and showing that they don't really have any answers to important questions. In reality, what they're showing is that they're just not going about it the right way at all.
And they're never satisfied with the answer you give.
Oh, no matter what you do.
No.
Yeah.
You could give them the best explanation for their question and follow that up with a little bit of flat earth proof, which will be completely ignored. And then there'll be another globe question. And a lot of the time, the questions don't lead to something like the Southern Pole Star. You could get the best explanation in the world. It's never going to be a proof of the globe at the end of it. It doesn't prove that we live on a spinning ball traveling around a black hole. It doesn't prove it at all. It's just an anomaly that has flat earthers scratching their heads as opposed to a globe proof.
We were talking about some of the things that you don't really like as much, like the Mandela effect. What do you think about, this is one of those topics, the endless plane or infinite plane, excuse me, versus the dome or combination or puddle theory? What's your favorite?
I really don't know. I started asking that question to my guests, and it got to a point where people would give maybe one of two answers, like you say, either dome or infinite plane. And if they were a bit more religious, they might veer on the side of the dome. And if I don't know, if you're not religious, you might veer on the side of infinite plane. Maybe that's not true, but you know what I mean. You're going to fit in one side or the other. But the reality is we don't know. We have no idea. The religious texts do tend to point towards there being a dome, so I can understand that logic. Wrapping my head around there being no edge, there being nothing there, is kind of difficult to understand because there's no visualization. We don't have really great pictures of the edge. And I don't think I'd ever want to go. It's so frightening, the place. I got criticised when I did a Mir show for saying this. Amir said that he would love to go down. If Math Powerland gets it together, he'd be the first on the boat. And I said, well, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
I want to have a family. I value my fingers. I don't want to lose them. And I'm not a seaman. So I would have nothing to offer going down there except risking my life pointlessly.
If and when it happens, the people who are most qualified for that are the people that should volunteer to go to that. If Definitely. You don't want to go, I mean, I'll call age into it. I'm 53 years old now, and I really just don't think I would be. I know it sounds horrible to say because I'm completely fit and active and, all of that. I just don't think I would be of value or may have the stamina that somebody might have who's in their 20s who would be wanting to do that. So it doesn't mean that I don't care about the flat earth if I don't step up and volunteer to go see about more land. That doesn't mean I don't believe that there's more land. The thing about the dome that makes me tend to think there's a possibility that something, force field, dome, plasma, you name it, could be up there is because we can't, it appears, get up there. We'd be up in space if there was a space to get to. It seems as if something's preventing us from doing so, and call that a dome or a firmament, if you will. That's the part that makes me think that there could be something to that, along with many religious texts having that as part of it, but said in different words. But that doesn't mean that I don't think we could have also more land at the same time, or the whole puddle theory thing.
It's just so difficult to research. You've got no grey area. You've got the religious texts on one side, and you've got NASA's information on the other. And when you came on Flat Earth UK, I asked you what percentage of lies do you think are handed to us by the media, and you put it at something like 70%. And you think, well, NASA's lies are probably even bigger. Definitely bigger than the general lies we get on the news. So if you're trying to research something like the Van Allen belt, you get nowhere. You can't break up what is real and what is total nonsense put in there to deceive us. So you have no avenue to research it beyond what you're handed from NASA.
Right. And you can't decide if you can get through the Van Allen belts, because how do you even know there are any Van Allen belts?
Exactly. I'd like to think that information was put there to give us knowledge, but it seems like no information is ever put there to give us knowledge.
It's put there to sometimes, I think, as a trap, as a way, a little holes along the way, like they used to make during wartime. They would dig these big holes and then put these sticks in there with feces on them, and then cover it with some kind of a tarp, and then the opposition would run towards you and then fall in this hole. Seems like there's lots of holes like that have been laid as traps for us to fall into. Van Allen radiation belts is one. When you start gaining a little bit of information, it's a place for you to easily fall into. Same thing with 9/11 research. You'll find out about
the
AIM map is another one. Yeah. You can get bogged down and fall into that hole with these feces covered sticks, and you have no way out at that point. You're stuck there pretty much to die if you fall in the hole. And so part of it is you have to be very aware, and what do they say, keep your eyes on a swivel and just always look around for any of these traps that are being put in our way that are disguised as information, but instead are going to suck you down into an area where if you go there, you'll never, ever see truth. Then how do you know what truth is?
I was going to say the same thing applies to things that are described as being hidden in plain sight. So a lot of subliminal messages and Illuminati programming. I don't view that as having been hidden to give us knowledge once it's uncovered. So once you find out that there's Illuminati programming all over the place, it's there for us to find. It's not there to hide a message. At least this is my opinion. It's there to create an image that we have. If you watch something like The Incredibles, I love that example. You're given the impression in that cartoon with all of the Illuminati symbolism that the characters are superheroes, super people, and when you then look into the stuff on a dollar bill or the stuff that's in advertising or in magazines or in the music business that gives you Illuminati information, you then put the connection together when someone like Alex Jones, again in the alternative media, shows you Bohemian Grove. You're left with the idea that the powers that be, or the powers that should not be, are actually like the Incredibles. They are super beings. In the case of Star Wars, you know, it would be a guy with lightning coming from his fingers. But they want us to believe that the men and women in power are actually powerful, and they're not. They're just people. They're just humans. Bog standard, like you and I.
Yeah, exactly. And the whole hidden in plain sight thing can put fear into you. Okay, I'm wearing this necklace today just because, but the pendant part of the necklace is a sort of a pyramid shape. Now,
Sure.
does that mean anything? I don't think the designer of this necklace made it so that it is any sort of Illuminati symbolism. But if I were on an interview where I showed the lower portion of my body and this was in plain sight, I'd probably receive 100 comments from people saying, look, hidden in plain sight, Illuminati symbolism.
You had Russian vids on Truth is Stranger Than Lies with David Weiss.
Yes. Yes.
And he pointed out the microphone and said,
yes.
There's a pyramid on it.
Yes. And I didn't realize that. And I've also heard that this is also a circle. It shows Saturn, and I've had it demanded of me that I explain the true meaning of the 8 framed photos behind me, which are actually albums by the group The Smiths. I mean, I don't have an explanation other than the fact that way before Flat Earth came along, I have been a big Smiths fan, and this is my office before I got a microphone and did YouTube videos, and that's just what I had as a decorative object. I've also heard that this jukebox is the firmament, the curved top, and there's a door right here over my shoulder, which is a door to an air conditioning closet, and that represents the, quote, portal to hell. And I say to myself, are you people serious? You're wasting your time thinking about these things. You know, it's just, well, same as the hidden in plain sight, the name Patricia with the last 3 letters, CIA. As if the CIA would actually find me named Debbie Jones somewhere, train me to be a person talking to you right now, change my name to have a hidden CIA letters in it for people to find. To what end?
So they can steer the movement.
Yes, off a cliff, I've heard. I'm going to steer it off the cliff. Okay. So all of these things I think are just big, huge wastes of time, and they're really amusing, but they're also sad. They're sad because that's where people's minds are focusing. Not all people, but some people, as opposed to focusing on things that are really, really, really more important. And trying to figure out what's really going on here, to me, is far more important than any of that garbage. And I'm sure you've received some similar comments.
There is kind of an explanation for it, though, and that's maybe it's not. With people like Leonard the Jesuit Order, you said he's not a flat earther, so you could use this across maybe several different platforms. But once you figure out that there's lies, you're hyper vigilant to looking for things that are wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that completely makes sense.
It's like Amir looking for the hand signals. I can't remember exactly how he did it, on his lap or something, when Mark Sargent was with Orphan Red. Right. And people are really looking for this stuff. And they'll find it if they look hard enough.
Right. Very true. Very true. I found that really sad, that whole event that occurred with Orphan Red visiting Mark Sargent and the whole thing kind of blowing up like it did. When on the surface, it would be like I come to the UK and contact you ahead of time and say, hey, are you and your wife going to be around? I'm going to be in the area. Do you want to do a video? And you'd probably say, oh, wait, no. He'd probably say, sure, here's my address, and set the camera up and we'd hang out. And then if we put it both on our channels, and if that turned out to be blow up in our faces as, 2 Illuminati people throwing signs and telegraphing their true secret intentions, when instead it should be kind of a celebration of us rare breed, which is called the flat earther in their natural element, get together and press the flesh and bond for a minute, it seems like it should be celebrated. And
Oh,
instead it was
definitely.
turned
I mean,
into
that
witch
was
hunt.
really magical to see those two together, because the chemistry I was trying to describe earlier that you can't have in this situation, they did genuinely have that because they're in the same room as each other. They're the subtle cues that a person will give another person when they're right next to each other aren't all verbal. And I'm staring down the lens of a camera now. You're not sat in front of me, so I can't read the visual cues that you will give me. Your body language is much more difficult to read on a screen. But when they're sat next to each other, there's no waiting for the delay in the mic feed. There's none of that. It's just a chat, and that's a magical thing. So, like you say, to see it ridiculed and nitpicking over the way people's hands are. Yeah, Mark summed it up by saying people are hypersensitive to this sort of stuff because they're in a conspiracy arena. So you can kind of understand, but it's a shame.
Yeah. And I know at some point I'm going to meet a flat earther in person and film it. And I know what'll happen. There will be many people who think it's great, and then there's going to be a small percentage who come up with all sorts of crazy things that there's no way I can prevent from happening. But you put it out there, just like every video you ever do, and hope that the greater good will be done, that some new information will come into people's minds and hearts because of the video that you do. What's
One thing
the
I will
reason?
say,
Go ahead.
Patricia, that this now, it kind of reminds me a bit of being on an aeroplane, and people probably think this is really sad, but this is amazing. What we're doing right now, the ability to have a conversation like we're having, thousands of miles apart, and present it to everybody and do it live. Yeah, it's got a few technical glitches, but this is amazing. It just amazes me that we can even be doing this and having conversations with various different people from various different backgrounds in various different places all over the flat plane. That's so cool.
Yeah, I do love this ability that we've got. And without the internet, this all would not be possible. This realm was only gifted to celebrities before, or newscasters who, if they get big enough, become sort of celebrities. But just any old person, like, hey, we've got microphones and we can do this hangouts and spread information and share with each other. It's really amazing. And it bridges the gaps between cultures too, because there's things that you do in your country, the things that we do here in the States that are different ways we look at things, the way things we even call breakfast and dinner different things. We're on different time zones, but in the end, we're all consuming the same, in the flat earth world, flat earth material, and filtering it through our individual brains from our different cultures, and then coming up with whatever it is that we have decided to come up with. And this is a way to kind of equalize everything, so we're all getting that same bit of information. And I really love it. I'm really grateful that YouTube's been here a long time. I was more of a passive consumer, occasionally watching videos long before flat earth came along, just videos on how to do little things, how to fix something or whatever, as opposed to actual videos on flat earth and that kind of thing. I remember watching a video about, this is when I owned a clothing store, about how to lace up vintage Doc Martens in this special lacing technique. And it was a guy from the UK who was 21 years old. And he was explaining how, like, I think it was called the Oi culture, I think. The kind of skinhead culture, I guess. And
Okay.
how he would lace up his Doc Martens. And he was explaining how to do it. And there I was, I think at the time, 51-year-old woman, whatever I was, lacing up my Doc Martens like this kid in his 20s who's a skinhead. I'm not a skinhead, but I wanted to learn how to do an authentic lacing pattern on Doc Martens. And I thought, what a crazy and wonderful world we live in, where we can learn these things from people in different cultures. And, we didn't have any of this before. So it is a good thing. It's a good and bad thing, because the internet can be used as a place to pillory somebody, to actually literally put somebody in stocks, leave them out in the public, and throw rotten tomatoes at them. And it's encouraged to do so. That's the dirty and dark side of the flat earth and the internet.
But you're the bright side. You're the yang to that yin, because you're doing things like the flatties, where you're celebrating people and their videos. And it's so easy to produce a video. You know, a camera phone has a record button, and on almost the same page, you can upload that video to YouTube. It's easy. And you're encouraging, on that show or on the flatties, you were encouraging people to produce more. And thinking about it, that was actually the real reason I did Flat Earth videos, was because of Globebusters. So I was watching a Globebusters, and I'd made a video about the shuttle looking the wrong size. So there was a clip where they had a half shot, a transition shot, and the transition was to the shuttle, and it happened to have some people close enough to give you reference to get an idea of the scale, and it was nowhere near. It was like a third of the size that Wikipedia said. And I'd done that video not really knowing how I was going to approach Flat Earth or how I was going to do it. So I put that video up and kept it private, thinking I don't want to be ridiculed. I don't want people to say, "Are you an idiot? You don't understand maths." And in Globebusters chat, I mentioned that, and somebody in the chat room had said, "Publish it. Let's see it. Let's see it." So literally during the show, I published that video, and towards the end of the show, Jaron said, "If you're hesitating, make a video. Just do it. Don't think about it. It's easy. Just do it." And those words really resonated with me. I remember thinking, yeah, why am I putting videos up and not making them public? So that was when I did my first video log. I thought, right, I'll talk about what I'm going to do. I had no idea what I was going to say. I pressed record and just talked. And I 100% encourage people to do exactly that. If you've got a feeling on Flat Earth or anything, but obviously this is a Flat Earth show, if you've got a feeling on it, click record, get your feelings, get it documented. Make sure you hold your phone that way round. But yeah, get a video down, publish it to YouTube. What's the worst that can happen? Like you say, people throw rotten tomatoes at you in the comments. So what?
Yeah, it's no big deal, actually. And the fact that you can do that anybody can do that, is such a freeing thing when you think about it. Instead of just having these special people, these famous people, be the talking heads and be the tastemakers of the day, it can be you, it can be me, it can be us, it can be all of us. Some of the best videos are from first timers who are just so overcome by the new realizations that have crossed their mind about Flat Earth. They're just walking, they're holding their camera and talking and walking, or on a selfie stick and just talking about Flat Earth. And the way they're speaking is, maybe they use profanity or errors in speaking, or they say something wrong, but it doesn't matter, because most of us are able to get around that and understand where they're coming from, where their heart is, and see where they're coming from and catch that wave of excitement. And, I'm always around on YouTube commenting on those brand new videos from people, like kind of giving an encouraging comment. But then every once in a while, I'll go back to that video for some reason. I'm not even sure why. Oh, probably because once you make a comment, I have my internet set up so that I will get a notification when a comment is made in relation to that comment. I'll go back and there's a person saying, "Flat Earth and other hot potatoes, what are you doing here? You're everywhere. Get the hell away," or something. And I'm like, I think that the person who made this video is probably happy that anybody watched it, B, anybody shared it, and C, anybody gave them a thumbs up and a word of encouragement. Why would anybody be the wet blanket and tell anybody else to not make a nice positive comment? What kind of people, what kind of monsters really are we dealing with? Sometimes you wonder.
It really makes me smile when I see those comments from you. So you get Flat Earth and all the hot potatoes with the little space woman, and it'll say something like, "Great video, really enjoyed it, liked and shared on Facebook and Twitter." And the person receiving that message is like, "I made a good video. I'm flattered. Thank you so much." But then, like you say, a dozen follow-up comments that are nasty from people whose video it is not, and people who haven't had the courage to make a video or even put a profile picture on their account.
Exactly.
But they're happily not somebody who's had the courage to make a little video, and it may be on something fairly benign, it may be on the biggest, you know, there is no curve, but doesn't matter who they are, they'll get knocked. On the flip side of that, and I know we've talked quite negatively about the comments, but the flip side of that is that you get such positivity, like with your comments. There will be so much joy and thanks and gratitude from other fellow flat earthers. On the one hand, people can say that that makes us a little bit like a cult.
Yes.
But there's no leaderless cults out there. We're all doing this as individuals. So you can put those labels on it because it may have certain aspects that people attribute to cult-like behavior because we're really nice to one another. But so what? Being nice to each other doesn't make us a cult.
It's a reprieve from other aspects of society, actually. Sometimes it can be a well of depression to jump into the flat earth world when you see the comments from haters. But on the other hand, it's a great feeling, you know, finding people of like mind, because of course, many of us are in relationships where we don't have a significant other who's a flat earther, or our other family members are not, you know, down with the flat earth and might think we're insane, or coworkers. And so it's nice when you come together and you make a video, or you even read comments on somebody else's video and you see there's unity. Unity doesn't mean we all believe the same thing, though. That's the part where the cult aspect doesn't come into play, like we were talking about earlier. Being a flat earther doesn't necessarily mean that you believe that 9/11 there was no planes, or that you believe in the Mandela effect, or you believe that there's cloning, or that you don't believe that there's cloning, or that you believe there's an endless plane, or that you believe there's a dome, or you believe in Jesus. It doesn't mean any of those things, or it can mean those things, or it can mean some or all. It all depends on the individual. So the cult thing, I don't know, that label, I don't know, that's just a person, the person putting the label on that, I think themselves is actually kind of lost.
For sure.
What about you when it comes to, do you have pet haters, people that follow you about and hit your videos and you're just familiar when you see that same old name? You're like, oh yeah, you again.
No, I don't. Well, if I do, I don't pick up on it, or I'm oblivious to it, or it doesn't fuss me. But I'll chat all day with everybody, and it doesn't matter what they comment, even if it's nasty. The fact that they've come and watched my video is enough for me. I'm really pleased when anybody comes along, even if they make a nasty comment. And sometimes the comments can be horrible, but have a really good point behind them. A comment on one of on Amir's first The 33 show, somebody pointed out,
which is a great name, by the way, for a show. A great name for a show.
But that got stick too. But that got criticised. Why are you encouraging this Freemasonic label? And it's not. It's highlighting that Freemasonry. It's not, you know, buying into it. I don't know. It's like you say, it doesn't matter which way you do it, you're going to get criticized either way.
The other day I was using this stapler, this metal stapler, as an example of something, and I got slated for the fact that it was orange. And that's a Illuminati. It's a stapler. It happens to be orange.
33 is orange, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But yeah, it doesn't mean anything. It's same with Math Powerland wearing a shirt with the number 33 on. He's not
the only thing that was weird about that was, where do you find that shirt? I think you have to purposely have that made in order to wear it, in order to provoke people.
Or maybe he was just trying to be ironic. Or maybe he didn't give it a second thought.
Yeah, either one.
I would say the latter is probably the most likely. He didn't give it a second thought.
Or if he did, to just provoke people, kind of the way the 33 show, like Amir named it, to make people realize that it's just a number. Either way, that's fine. If somebody has real dark intentions, they're going to be well hidden. They're not going to be a guy with an orange 33 shirt, I don't think. Or a show called the 33 Show. I mean, we're not stupid.
Definitely not. Yeah, I mean, like I say, one of the comments in that video was somebody pointing out what I'd said earlier, which is this guy must be a bit of a coward if he doesn't want to go down to the Antarctic Circle. And it was phrased in a way that was a little bit nasty, you know, this guy's a shill, or this guy showed his true colors, whatever. But I kind of thought, no, I understand why you would think that. And it does deserve a little bit more explanation, which is to say, I'd be totally useless down there. I don't have any skill sets down there. What's the point of me laying down my life needlessly? Not to say that I wouldn't encourage anybody who does have those skills to do it immediately. It's one of those. It deserved a bit of explanation, even though it was a horrible comment. But it wouldn't ever make me think, oh, I must recoil from these nasty words. Just sticks and stones.
Yeah, when it comes to the whole going to Antarctica thing, there are people who, when and if it happens, will be needed on the ice. And then there are other people who can have behind the scenes duties, even just doing a show covering the event or promoting it on their Facebook, or, you know, there's so many different ways to be involved in any of these things. Actually putting on boots and, you know, warm clothing, I mean, and going there and potentially, yes, risking your life is not for everyone. And it doesn't mean you're a bad person if you don't do it.
No.
You know, do you think this is ever going to happen? Do you think that expedition will ever occur?
Yes, I do think it will occur. I think there's a need for it to occur. I've said I don't think that we'll have a news broadcast that admits that they were wrong or that they lied. I think we'll end up with a dilution of Flat Earth in some of the format that's presented with a whole bucket load of other lies. But I think we will. I think eventually that there will be those missions. They've happened in the past, lots of them. So I don't see any reason why it can't happen in the future. Again, I don't know, but I think so. I think we will have missions down there. I don't see any reason why not.
What do you think the future is for Flat Earth? Do you think it's going to ever go semi-mainstream? I mean, I can't imagine it being real mainstream and being taught in schools. We hope for that, but what do you think is going to happen?
I'm more encouraged by the day, because the more I think about it, it is just where we live. It is just reality. The globe is a lie. So you can't have a lie being taught continually. Once it crumbles, you have to have an alternative. Again, you're back to, in my humble opinion, them already having an alternative lined up long ago. They will already have figured out a contingency plan. It won't just be the red herring of the azimuthal equidistant map. There'll be a much bigger plan in place to roll out. And I think we've already seen it. I think a lot
aliens?
Possibly aliens. I think that might have been the one that they would have used if the globe lie was still sound or still solid and nobody had picked it apart. So maybe not aliens, but I can only draw information from the predictive programming that we're presented with. So once you know the globe is a lie, and then you see how the globe is presented on the TV, on your iPad, on whatever it is that you're getting your media from, once you see how that programming is given to you, you can then see how other information, which could be along the same lines, is also presented to you. I like Red Dwarf as an example because it has so much of this sort of stuff in it, but with time travel and parallel universes, I think a lot of those ideas or suspensions of disbelief will eventually be presented to us in a scientific way. Initially, very, very complicated maths and very complicated science, which will over time get explained to us through whoever, Dara O'Brien or Brian Cox. Somebody will explain it to us and break it down with a few cartoons, and then we will understand it. But what we will actually understand, we've already been given. We'll have already been told it. We can't just have a really big revelation that we live somewhere beyond our comprehension. We must be presented the information in a way that is nice and digestible, and the way to do that is to predictively program us with the information before they tell it to us. So it's no surprise when some of the things that come out of CERN, you've already heard them before in Quantum Leap or Red Dwarf or 101 of Back to the Future, you name it. There's 101 different examples of the stuff that could be in the future tied in with the next big lie.
Do you think, along with the next big lie, whatever form it takes, there's going to be another big event, a created event, some people might want to call that a hoax or a false flag or international business crime, that they're going to do. They're going to pull something really big. There's word on the street that the next big warning is sometime in October and the world will cease to be what it is today. Do you believe that something like this could happen? Or are you thinking this is just another one of those little hoops they're going to make us jump through to, to create fear along the way?
I think it is definitely a hoop they want us to jump through to create fear. The impending 2012 end of the world, the next meteor that's going to hit the world, whatever it is, it's always there just to create fear, because fear is the best means of control they have.
A lot of people will say things like, well, it's the archons who are feeding off of our fear. Whether you believe in archons or not, we don't need archons, because they feed off our fear. They as the powers that should not be. It doesn't really matter what name you put on it. They need us to be scared because that's how they control us. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what
the globe takes it even one step further, even beyond fear, which is insignificance. And it's the main point of the globe life to me. When you consider how significant people feel when they find out the earth is flat, they can put it down to them knowing there's a God, if you like. We'll just use that as a simple explanation for it, although that may not be people's belief or the reason why they feel more, I'm going to say important. I just can't think of a better word. But when you reverse that, so you go onto the globe, my cousin had a really sharp tongue when I first started doing these videos, which was, she said, who do you think you are? We've got to pay our job. We've got to pay our taxes. We've got to do our jobs. You're just one guy. What gives you the right to tell me where I live? And my answer was, how you've explained your life makes you seem insignificant. And in the heliocentric model, when you're on a globe, you're an insignificant speck of dust traveling around an insignificant speck of dust, which is traveling around another insignificant speck of dust and expanding into a whole load of nothing. Well, bearing that in mind, it makes your life and existence pointless and meaningless. And that is the best possible control they can have over us. Make us feel like we're totally worthless and insignificant. Because if you had the feelings that a flat earther has, or certainly the feelings I have, and I assume you feel the same, you suddenly feel like your life has a bit of purpose. It's not just we've got to pay our taxes, do the day-to-day, 9 to 5. It doesn't feel like that stuff has anywhere near as much importance anymore. You don't just have to get up, do your job, retire and die. There's a lot more to living when you know you live on flat earth.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. That needs to be a soundbite. Very well said. Before we go, I want to find out, you've got 2 channels. You've got Nathan Oakley 1980 and Nathan Oakley, and one of the channels is devoted to electronics. Speaking of careers, jobs, can you explain that channel and what you do on it, in case people are unaware and they stumble across one channel and are looking for flat earth stuff, which is on the other channel?
Well, I used to be a rep, so my job, maybe 3 jobs before the one I had now, was an international rep. So I used to travel all over the world, and I had.
Did you ever see the curve from an airplane window?
Well, no. That's one of the things that flashed through my mind when I first heard it. I got really excited every time I got on a plane. It scared me. Having watched a lot of air crash investigation, but every time the plane would take off or land, it scared me. And there was a couple of times that people on the flight screamed with terror because it seemed like we were going to crash. Coming into Canada one time, the plane went into what seemed like a sideways slip stall, and you could see the ground coming towards you. The engines revved up to maximum, and nothing happened for about 5 seconds with the engines on full pelt as we were coming into land. And then just before the earth came towards the window, the engines actually kicked in and the pilot did a go around. But for a few moments, me included, everybody on the plane was screaming in absolute terror. And not because of that terror, but because of just what it is. Flying is amazing. And what I would do when people would be eating their peanuts and drinking their gin and tonics were...
Oh, it looks like Nathan, are you back? Oh, it
Uh,
cut out for a minute, but you were saying get on a plane and eat your peanuts. Continue.
Yeah, everyone else is eating their peanuts and watching the movie. I'd be the guy looking out of the bigger window where the door was at the back of the plane and looking at the vast expanse, and then walking across to the other side of the plane and seeing the same thing, this vast expanse. And at the time, you don't give it any consideration. You don't think we live on flat Earth because of what you see. But when I heard those words, that was one of the images that went through my mind. Yeah, I've seen it many, many times. It was more prevalent when we were going over land. I remember flying over Russia once, and as opposed to flying over water, and the vast expanse was so much more dramatic when it was land. Maybe it's just me. But yeah,
interesting. I remember a couple of times flying in one of those sort of near-death experiences. One time it was over Cleveland, the wings iced and the plane was rocking back and forth very dramatically, and the guy's total stranger next to me grabbed my hand, and the stewardesses were screaming, or flight attendants, I think they prefer to be called. And it was one of those moments where I thought I was going to die. And you scream in fear based on movies that you've seen, more than the real idea that you're going to die. Because in movies, everything always works out in the end. And somehow maybe I think that you feel that same way when you're on a plane and it's going down, or at least it appears to be going down. Well, due to some technical difficulties, speaking of going down, it looks like we lost you for a moment and now you're back. No, I think you're back. I don't know. Somehow I don't know if when you're speaking, the camera is actually flipping to you now. But very briefly, you've got the 2 channels. Explain to folks what they are in case they're wondering.
Sure. So my main flat Earth channel, if you want to call it that, is my name with Nathan, with 1980 at the end of it. So Nathan Oakley 1980, all one word. Is
why 1980, by the way?
Year of birth.
Okay, got it.
I've had the same email address and account ever since I went online for the first time, which was about 1998. I had a computer for several years before that, about 96. No, is that right? Yeah, about 1996, and it was stuck in a cupboard because my parents owned a computer shop, and my dad was a computer programmer. So they gave me a computer, but I didn't like computers because of their business, and a lot of my family were the same. They all kind of hated computers towards the end of it, in the mid-90s. They even offered me the business, and my sister and my brother, and we all turned it down. It was, turning over millions, but none of us wanted to do it, so that got sold. None of us took up the business, but I was left with this computer, and once a friend came around and actually set it up and gave me an AOL account, I wanted to take a very different approach to
AOL. That's funny.
Yeah, I've still got an AOL address. But everybody that goes on it would go onto the chat rooms, and they'd all have aliases. They'd all have fake screen names, just like on YouTube now. And my friend, I won't mention his name because of the story, but he showed me how you could instant message somebody, and you could be quite rude. You could ask them anything you liked, personal questions, because of having an alias. So we were using his account. And I said, I don't want to do that. I want people to know it's me, and I don't want to hide behind some alias. If I put something out online, I'm not going to be ashamed of putting it. I'm not going to ask some random woman what she's wearing. I'd rather have some accountability, and that's why I use my name. And I've kept the same name all the way through. So my YouTube channel is the same as my original email address, Nathan Oakley 1980.
It's funny because I don't really think of age that much, but since 1980 is your address. In 1981, I graduated from high school. That's how different in age we are. But I consider us contemporaries. Isn't that weird? I don't consider myself incredibly older than you. I think all of the people in Flat Earth is generally being about the same age, because we all came to this awareness around the same time. It's just kind of an interesting way to look at it. Okay, so you've got one channel, you've got electronics and such, and then you've got the channel that's got all your Flat Earth stuff on it, right?
Sure. I do occasionally put a video onto Oakley Cord, or it's just called Nathan Oakley, but they're sort of secondary channels. the main channel, well, my main channel was actually Oakley Cord. It's certainly the one with the most hits on it. I don't know why I picked Nathan Oakley 1980 to put the flat Earth videos on. I just picked one of them at random and started uploading videos, and that's how it's gone ever since.
All right. I've always wondered what the difference in these 2/3 channels are, and now we know. Well, thank you for taking your time and talking with me today.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as well, and I feel, because of YouTube, that I know you, or at least as well as a person can know another person who's never met in person. And maybe someday we actually will have that moment when we meet, and then we'll have to face the scorn of people saying we're doing, I don't know, Masonic hand signs. Maybe we'll even do a few just for fun.
Something would be wrong.
I'm sure. Nathan, thank you so much for being here today. It's Nathan Oakley, and I'm Patricia Steere. And this has been Flat Earth and Other Hot Potatoes, episode number 60. And, well, like I always say, keep it flat.